I'm Jessica, 38 years old. I run my own law firm as an attorney. Actually, I'm remarried after a divorce, and now I live happily with my second husband and our 2 kids. However, my eldest child, Laura, is neither mine nor my husband's biological child. 12 years ago, my sister Rachel, who was a single mom, left Laura with me and disappeared.
I'm going to live with Rachel.
That's what my ex-husband, Mike, wrote in a note before vanishing, leaving behind divorce papers as well. Since then, no one had seen Rachel or Mike. But now here they were, standing right in front of me. It was a chance encounter after 12 years.
Hey, how's that kid doing?
Though shocked by the sudden question, I calmly replied, "She's doing well. She's grown up and is now in middle school."
Wow, that emotionless crybaby loser made it to middle school? Seriously, she only ever cried or had that sullen look. Can she even handle school properly? She was definitely not cute.
Rachel kept running her mouth while Mike laughed hysterically beside her.
Mom.
Just as I was about to end our conversation, I heard a voice calling me from behind. "Laura, are you done?"
Yeah.
It was my daughter Laura, wearing her prestigious private middle school uniform. "Well, we're leaving," I said as I greeted them, and Laura did the same. As we started to walk past them, Rachel shouted,
Hey, wait a minute.
"What?"
That kid. No way, right?
Seeing her reaction, an idea popped into my head. "If you come here tomorrow at 10 a.m., I can spare some time to talk." With that, I handed Rachel my business card, ignored whatever they were still saying, and walked away with Laura. Rachel had always been spoiled since she was a kid. She knew she was pretty and couldn't stand not being the center of everyone's attention. She used people without hesitation and carried that attitude into adulthood. While I passed the bar exam during college and became a law clerk after graduation, Rachel graduated high school and, wanting money and admiration, dove headfirst into the nightlife. It wasn't uncommon for her to come home in the morning just as I was leaving for the day. Another all-nighter?
I don't need a lecture from someone still mooching off their parents as a student.
Don't worry, I'll be bringing back my lawyer badge soon enough.
But you'll never make as much as me, right? I can make 10 grand in a single night. Can you?
I'm not interested in making that kind of money or doing that kind of work.
Boring.
With that, Rachel would head back to her room, cursing under her breath. Not long after, Rachel moved out of our parents' house. Since then, she hardly ever came back. In the meantime, I married Mike, whom I met through a mutual friend. Rachel made a brief appearance at the wedding, but didn't even offer her congratulations. Then, one day, everything changed suddenly. It all started with a late-night call from my mom. "Hello. It's rare for you to call."
There's no time for chat, Rachel. She's come back home pregnant.
"Really?" Mike and I rushed to my parents' house, which wasn't far, driving as fast as we could. When we arrived, there was Rachel, her belly already noticeably large. "What's going on?"
Well,
Rachel was fiddling with her phone, acting as if nothing concerned her. "Rachel?"
As you can see, I'm pregnant. I think I'm about 23 weeks along. Too late to terminate, so I'm just gonna have the baby.
Her nonchalant tone left me speechless. Apparently, she had quit her job, given up her apartment, and returned home. When we asked who the father was, she just dodged the question. My parents and I were at a loss. Then Mike, standing behind me, spoke gently.
Maybe Rachel is just putting on a brave face, but deep down, she's scared. Having a baby as a single mom is scary for anyone.
As a doctor, Mike seemed to prioritize Rachel's well-being as a pregnant woman. Feeling encouraged, Mike began to care for Rachel more than anyone in the family, even visiting my parents' house on his own. Eventually, Rachel gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She named her Laura. Regardless of the circumstances, she was our first grandchild and niece. Both my parents and I adored that tiny new life immensely. However, Rachel didn't change. Even after having a child, her self-centered attitude remained. Rachel, Laura's crying.
So what? Jessica, you can give her the bottle.
For Rachel, her nails seemed to be a far bigger concern than feeding Laura. Mike, understanding that hormonal imbalances can happen around pregnancy and childbirth, started taking Rachel out for some fresh air about a month after Laura was born. Rachel was more than happy to go along. One weekend, Rachel came to visit. What's up? You came all the way here with Laura on the train?
Yes, something like that.
I felt an intense unease about Rachel bringing Laura on the train.
Hey, can you watch Laura for a bit? I want to go to my usual salon in the city.
Without waiting for a response, Rachel handed over the diaper bag and Laura then left. That day, Mike had gone out for golf early in the morning, and I had been enjoying a quiet day alone, so taking care of Laura wasn't a problem. But after a day of changing diapers, feeding, napping, and playing, it was already evening. She's late. I messaged Rachel several times, but while the messages were read, there was no reply. And just like that, Rachel disappeared. And from that day on, Mike never returned home either. The day after that shocking reunion, I was at the office, working as usual. Since going independent 4 years ago, I've been fortunate with great clients. And today, I had several meetings lined up in the afternoon. But today, an unexpected task had popped up before those meetings. I wonder what kind of face they'll make when they show up. As I pondered, there was a knock at the door. Come in. At my call, the door opened and Rachel and Mike were shown in by my staff. Their expressions were amusingly sullen.
What is this place?
Like I said yesterday, it's my office.
What's this about you being remarried? I didn't know.
Of course not. You disappeared without a word, and Mike left his job and vanished too. How was I supposed to tell you? Rachel clicked her tongue and glared at me, clearly annoyed, her demeanor unchanged despite being in her 30s now. And yet, despite everything, you could still calmly face me after I suggested meeting? Do you have no idea what you did that made you disappear for 12 years?
What? If anything, you should be grateful. I gave a childless woman like you a beautiful child. You must be thrilled that your cute little niece, Laura, became your daughter.
Rachel's smug grin was infuriating, and I exhaled quietly to maintain my composure. Well, thanks for that, but it turns out I wasn't infertile.
What?
I got pregnant right after remarrying, and now I have a second-grade daughter. She and Laura are the best of friends. They both stared at me in stunned silence, clearly not expecting that I'd had a child.
No way. You weren't infertile?
Apparently not. What made you think I was in the first place?
Well,
Was it simply because Mike and I didn't have kids for years? Was it compatibility? Or maybe it was Mike's issue? Caught off guard, Mike shot me a surprised look. They must have mocked me behind my back. Infertile woman. Did Mike leave me because of that label? Despite her slightly awkward expression, Rachel kept her assertive tone and pressed further.
Well, good for you. So, when did you remarry?
9 years ago.
How old is he? What does he do?
You're really grilling me.
Is that a problem?
Not really. He's 39, same age as me. He's a doctor. Hearing that, Rachel suddenly burst into laughter. What's so funny all of a sudden?
You're so predictable. Your pride is just off the charts.
What?
You lost your doctor husband to me, so you went and got yourself another doctor? How pathetic. You can't stand being with someone who's beneath you, can you? It's hilarious how transparent you are.
That was exactly the kind of thing Rachel, with her inflated pride, would think. She probably chose her partners with the same mindset. But the truth is, I'm not particularly drawn to doctors. In fact, back in the day, I avoided dating within the same group because it was too much trouble. It just so happened that both of my husbands were doctors. To me, that's all it was, but explaining that to Rachel would be pointless. After all, Rachel was the one who chose Mike as her runaway partner precisely because he was a doctor. Good for you. Since my husband was a doctor, it made it easy for you, right? No need to search men. Just grab what's already there. You always need someone who can cater to your ego, right?
What?
Laura's father.
What?
You were planning to settle down with a doctor who was one of your clients, but he dumped you, didn't he?
How do you know that?
Rachel's shocked expression brought a slight smile to my face. In contrast, Mike, sitting next to her, had a tense expression. Mike, let me clear something up. Laura isn't your child. She's the child Rachel had with a client she got involved with at work. You were just being used.
What? Hold on. Laura is my daughter. Rachel said she was, and that's why we decided to have her.
Well, sorry to break it to you. You got caught up in Rachel's lies.
Hey, you can't just say that.
But it's the truth.
You've got to be kidding me. What's your proof?
A DNA test. Neither Rachel nor Mike seemed prepared for that, their faces betraying their confusion. After you both disappeared, leaving Laura behind, I checked the records. It showed that you had acknowledged her as your child, so I had it investigated to see if you and Laura were really biologically related.
What?
Are you serious? You had no right.
Well, you did acknowledge her, didn't you? My sister's child, acknowledged by my husband? That's a serious issue, don't you think? So, I investigated.
But how did you even do that?
Cigarette butts and a toothbrush.
What?
You don't need blood or mucus for a DNA test. I used your cigarette butts and toothbrush from the house. The result? A 99% probability that you are not the father. Rachel lied to you. Laura isn't your child. I placed the test result documents in front of them. The report clearly stated that there was no biological relationship between them. Rachel kept her distance, merely observing, but Mike snatched up the paper immediately, his eyes wide as he meticulously read every word. Then, with a loud bang, he slammed the paper down on the desk and snapped at me.
How reliable is this? You think you can deny it with just one piece of paper?
This is the result of a proper examination conducted at the hospital where my husband works. If you don't believe it, I can bring in the person who conducted the test to explain. The hospital my husband works is one of the best private hospitals. Upon seeing the hospital's name on the test results, even Mike couldn't argue and hung his head.
How did it come to this? I was with Rachel even before she got pregnant. We were intimate. So, how can Laura not be my child? That's gotta be a lie, right?
So you're finally admitting your relationship with Rachel? Didn't expect to hear that from you. You've been seeing her for that long? Well, I already knew. Mike stared at me, shocked, with the same expression Rachel had earlier, clearly not expecting I'd been aware of their secret meetings. Is it really that surprising? You were so obvious. You welcomed Rachel back without any hesitation when she returned pregnant, treating her kindly under the guise of being a doctor. But that's because you knew about the pregnancy from the start, right? Was it your idea for her to return home at a time when she couldn't have an abortion?
What?
By returning at that stage, her parents had no choice but to accept her. Were you that eager to see your child? Mike's eyes wavered slightly. Did he really want a child that much? I let out a small sigh.
I did. I always wanted kids, but it just wasn't happening. Honestly, the stress made me go out drinking more, and I started coming home drunk more often.
That's true. You did start going out more.
I began thinking it was my fault, losing confidence in myself. Then, one night, Rachel approached me near the bar I frequented, and I started going to her place.
I see.
Rachel was really kind, always listening to my complaints with patience. There were things I just couldn't tell you, Jessica, but Rachel accepted everything. I leaned on her kindness when she said, "Why not use me?"
So, you ended up in a physical relationship with Rachel?
Yeah, I did.
With that, Mike hung his head in shame. He was the type who hated hurting others, someone you'd describe as the picture of integrity. For someone like him to betray his wife and have an affair with her sister was unthinkable. But precisely because he was such a serious person, it's easy to imagine how the guilt consumed him. Yet he still got trapped in the situation. For Rachel, who was skilled at manipulating men from her job, Mike must have been an easy target. He fell right into her trap. But you know, Rachel was already pregnant when she got involved with you.
Well,
She knew she was pregnant, and still she lured you in and had a relationship with you.
was it?
Then she told you she was pregnant and made you the stand-in father. She used our situation, knowing we couldn't have kids, to take you from me. As I spoke calmly, Mike responded with just a few words. With bloodshot eyes, he began to spew words frantically.
This is a lie, right? It's all a lie, isn't it? You're just trying to test me.
No, it's all true.
It's a lie.
And why would I need to test you? You betrayed me. My sister took my husband. I'm just laying out the facts after investigating what happened. Seems like you were completely in the dark. I'm doing you a favor by telling you. Mike's face grew paler by the second.
Why bring this up now?
Bring this up now? You're the one who's saying that?
What?
Until I saw you two yesterday, I was content with my life. But meeting you there brought it all back. You two made me remember.
That's...
Rachel deceived you, and you abandoned me, and then left Laura with me. You should at least know what kind of woman Rachel really is after you left your wife and child for her.
That's not. I didn't mean to abandon you.
Clenching his fists tightly, Mike muttered in a hoarse voice, Whether you meant it or not, you did. Why would you leave the child you supposedly wanted and disappear? If you truly wanted to be with Rachel, you could have divorced me and done that.
That's because Rachel said she couldn't handle raising a child.
What?
You remember how Rachel was after the birth, right?
Yeah, right after giving birth, all she cared about were her nails and hair. She left all the childcare to me and Mom.
Exactly. Rachel really couldn't handle it. I just wanted to support her and make her happy.
What is this guy in front of me, lost in his self-righteous fantasy? How naive can he be? Mike's well-meaning but misguided sense of duty had taken a very wrong turn. Of course, Rachel's always been the type who couldn't stand not being the center of attention. Do you really think someone like that could love and raise a weak, cute child who would naturally be loved more than herself?
That's
Well, maybe it was for the best for Laura.
what?
I mean, with parents like you two, she wouldn't have turned out well, right?
What did you say?
Someone who can have a child for selfish reasons and then abandon them couldn't possibly raise a decent child. Rachel probably saw having a child with a high-status, handsome doctor as more of a pet project, didn't she?
You're being incredibly rude.
Am I? I think forcing someone to sign an abortion consent form, then deciding to have the baby anyway, is far ruder. And frankly, a disgusting thing to do. Rachel gasped, staring at me in shock. Mike's brow furrowed even deeper.
Abortion consent form. What's that?
Rachel talked it over with the real father, agreed to an abortion, and received a settlement of $20,000.
Seriously?
As I mentioned earlier, the guy was a client at Rachel's club. He was good-looking, tall, a doctor, and the son of a hospital director. He was the perfect match for Rachel's desires, and they were physically involved. Rachel tried to trap him, but as the future hospital director, he already had someone lined up for him. When Rachel's pregnancy came to light, he had no intention of marrying her or wanting the child. Rachel agreed to the abortion and took the settlement. But instead of going through with the abortion, Rachel kept the baby and made you the stand-in father. Isn't that right, Rachel? I smirked as Rachel grimaced, silently acknowledging everything. Mike, with a furrowed brow, asked me the obvious question.
Jessica, how did you find all this out?
I hired a private investigator. I have my work and had to take care of Laura, so I needed help. They looked into Rachel's workplace, her relationships, and everything else, which eventually led to the hospital director's son. After that, I spoke directly with him. He was shocked. I never imagined she'd have the baby and then disappear, he said.
You met him? How is he doing?
Rachel's sudden eagerness irritated me. What are you saying?
Why?
He apologized to you, paid the settlement, and thought it was all settled. I even spoke with his lawyer, who confirmed everything. You signed a written agreement, didn't you? He was shocked to find out you broke your promise. I never thought it would come to this, he said. Of course. The whole ordeal with Rachel's pregnancy was nothing but a nightmare for him. Of course, he bears some responsibility as well. That's why they had a thorough discussion, decided on the abortion, and he even paid the settlement. But Rachel betrayed him. To him, it must be terrifying.
Come on, having a child with a man like that isn't something you get to do every day.
You really did see the child as a personal accessory, didn't you?
But
And in the end, you couldn't even raise your baby and just abandoned her. Rachel clicked her tongue loudly and muttered complaints under her breath. Seeing that she hadn't changed one bit, I felt a wave of resignation. It was pointless to continue this conversation. Well, I'm grateful, honestly. Because of all that, I got to become Laura's parent, and most importantly, I met my husband.
What?
My second husband is a friend of Laura's biological father. He's a pediatrician and started helping me when he heard I was raising Laura alone, saying, not that I'm a replacement for him. He even became my husband so we could formally adopt Laura. I'm truly thankful, and now I couldn't be happier. It feels like we've always been a real family. Laura is in middle school now, excelling academically and in sports. You don't need to worry about her, so just go live your life with each other. That's all I wanted to say. With that, I stood, signaling the conversation was over. But then Rachel blurted out something outrageous.
Wait, give Laura back to me.
No way.
Now that you have your own child, you can give Laura back.
I see. So that's why Rachel came here today. I get it. Seeing Laura in that uniform made you want her back? The child you once thought was defective is now attending a prestigious private school. That must be irresistible for someone like you, who loves having a little trophy.
If you understand, then give her back. You've got your own kid now.
Who knew she'd be this desperate? Her sheer desperation made me chuckle.
What's so funny?
Well, nothing. I just thought you seemed really desperate.
Of course. She's my child.
Are you going to raise her alone?
Of course, I'll raise her with Mike.
Is that so?
What do you mean?
Why don't you take a look at Mike's face? Rachel, so caught up in her own desires, finally glanced at Mike. There he was, standing expressionless.
Mike?
Rachel called out hesitantly, and Mike responded with a sharp look.
I want a divorce.
Wait,
I'm divorcing you, Rachel.
why? How come?
Shaking his arm frantically, Rachel pleaded in confusion. But Mike, glaring at her, spat out his words.
For the past 12 years, no, since the day we met, I've been deceived by you. I can't imagine continuing to live with a woman like that. We're divorcing immediately, and I'll be pressing charges for fraud.
Rachel gasped at his unexpected words. She clung to his arm, shaking it more vigorously.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to be like this. I was desperate.
Desperate not to lose the man she had been using like an ATM, Rachel tried to excuse herself, clinging to Mike. But Mike remained silent, offering no response. As I watched this scene unfold, my phone began to ring. It was Laura. What's up? I ignored the two and answered the call. And I intentionally put it on speaker. Laura's voice suddenly echoed from the phone, causing the two who had been arguing to fall silent and look startled. Yet, perhaps instinctively, they stayed quiet and listened to my conversation with Laura. Laura asked if I could take her and a friend to visit the maternity ward because her friend had a new baby sister.
Babies are always so cute.
Yeah, does it remind you of when your sister was born?
Of course. She was so tiny and adorable. Mom, thank you.
What did you say?
Thanks for having my sister.
Laura. Laura's gentle words often moved me, even as her parent. I wanted the two standing before me to face reality. Laura, are you happy being my child?
Of course, I don't care about someone who abandoned me. They're just a stranger to me now. If you hadn't raised me, Mom, if you hadn't married Dad and taken me in, I wouldn't have met my little sister, Grandpa, Grandma, or my best friends. You're the best mom ever. You're kind, warm, smart, and beautiful. There's no one else who could be my mom.
Laura's heartfelt words of gratitude rang out. Rachel was left speechless, stunned by Laura's words. Laura knew everything about her past. Despite knowing it all, she still smiled brightly and chose to stay by our side. That reality seemed to hit Rachel hard, and for the first time, she looked genuinely shaken as a mother. Mike glanced at her, gave me a silent nod, and without looking back, walked out of the office. Rachel's desperate, almost shrill cries echoed down the hall as she hurried after him. Gradually, her voice faded until it disappeared entirely. Later, I received a call from the lawyer Rachel had hired. It seemed she was having trouble accepting the divorce. Despite being confronted with Laura's reality, she hadn't given up. She even accused me of falsifying the DNA test results, claiming I might have used my husband's connections at the hospital. Furious, I decided to send not only the results proving Mike wasn't Laura's father, but also the DNA test showing the near-perfect match between Laura and her biological father. During the process of nullifying Mike's acknowledgement of Laura, we conducted a DNA test with Mike and also obtained the proper consent from the biological father to test his DNA alongside Laura's. Faced with these results, even Rachel had no choice but to remain silent, and it seemed that her divorce from Mike would proceed smoothly afterward. However, knowing Rachel, there was no way she would quietly accept that.
I was abandoned by Mike. He got involved with me, his ex-wife's sister, and took advantage of me. He left Jessica to be with me, and now he's throwing me away just like her, dragging me to a place where I don't know anyone and then discarding me. He's a terrible person, abandoning his wife for a younger woman.
Rachel repeatedly caused scenes at Mike's hospital, yelling such accusations. Each time, the police were called, and Rachel was taken away, leaving Mike to apologize to the hospital. This happened so frequently that patients began filing complaints like, "That doctor can't be trusted," and "What kind of doctor causes a disturbance like that?" As a result, Mike resigned and moved back to his rural hometown. Of course, Rachel followed him there, continuing her harassment, and the divorce proceedings dragged on endlessly. Rachel's lawyer admitted they had no idea what she was holding on to anymore. Mike was not only pursuing charges against Rachel for fraud and defamation, but the biological father of Laura was also involved due to Rachel breaking their agreement. Because of that, she had to hire a lawyer, but the legal fees, along with living expenses, were overwhelming, so Rachel had taken an unfamiliar factory job to earn some money. But frankly, I couldn't care less what happens to those two. They're getting what they deserve. After all the pain they caused us, it's only natural that they face their own misfortunes. Even our parents, despite Rachel's pleas, have chosen not to help her. I hope they live with the regret of their actions for the rest of their lives. But my only wish is to give Laura the happiness of a loving family. That's all I care about.